So that's welcome to go and call this meeting to order.
Shop you'll have right there. It has all
Do we
the
do pledges?
personal care.
Yeah.
Excuse us,
Yeah, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Cheney, Commissioner Casterline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo,
Here,
Commissioner Dupnick,
Here.
Judge Garza.
Here, we've got a quorum. All right, we're gonna move on to. Do we not have
We have a special meeting.
it's a special meeting, okay, but we don't have citizens being heard. I'm gonna go ahead and add that.
no. Do you want to add it?
Yeah. Cause I got someone who signed up, who wants to talk.
Awesome.
All right, Mr. Hood.
So the last time I spoke to you,
Your name and your address.
yes, sir, I'm sorry, Judge, Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. Judge, the last time I spoke in front of you was about this subject. It was when you were school board president, Ray Garza. There's not, I'm against this project. When I spoke against it at the last time,
Is this concerning the workforce
the
training?
workforce training,
Okay,
would you like me to speak on?
during the workshop?
Yes, sir, I'll sit.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You
All right.
put on there what you want.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thanks. All right, we're gonna go on to item number 1.
Okay,
And it is discuss and accept the Aransas County Annual Financial Report and single audit for the year ended December 31st, 2022, as presented by Belt Harrison BCHAC LLP, Certified Public Accountants. Do we need a motion?
We do.
Okay, take a motion.
I wanted to move to table this.
it will be tabled because they are not here to present. They will be here on the 10th to do an official presentation. Because they're new, they are going over everything with fine tooth comb, making sure that everything flows from the old auditors into theirs. So they're not quite ready to present. They did give me the information that I needed to make sure that we did our continuing compliance with our bond issues. I was assured that had we had any issues, they would have already been in contact with me. So I do not anticipate a management letter at all. I don't, I do anticipate that it will be an unqualified audit, which means we have no issues. They've also sent y'all a questionnaire for y'all to complete and send back to them as soon as you can, because that will be part of completing our audit. You'll give it to Tracy, then I'll tell her where to send it. I think they want to kind of keep them separate to where I'm not getting all of them and doing it, so it's independent. But Tracy can send them in.
Do we have a second to the table?
Second. Is this something that has to be voted today for, you said for deadlines? Okay, all right, perfect.
We're okay with doing, I just wanted to give you all the information.
Okay, in the questionnaire that they sent us, how many layers? How close do you have to be related to somebody in the question they're asking about? Are you related to anybody that's employed by the? Okay, I'm related to a lot of people somehow, but I mean, I need to know how
I
deep.
think there's a thing here that gives you some on number 1. This is your rules on it,
Okay,
which includes like, it says 3rd degree, 2nd degree, 1st degree as your child and stuff. It gives you the,
all right.
how close you want to be.
You don't think it?
Before we vote, I would just ask.
I'd have to give me a list of county employees.
Before we vote on this next time, before it comes on the agenda again at our July meeting, I would ask that we receive the document enough in advance to review it, because I believe all of the members of Commissioners Court were out of town this week, and I am not going to try to understand a document of this nature by looking at my cell phone. I did look at it in the early hours of this morning. I had some questions. I'm concerned that it says see notes to financial statements, but we received no notes.
No, we will get a complete audit. I have asked that we have it in time to be able to review. They just were not ready to submit all of that at this time. That's why we're going to do it on July 2.
All right.
Motion on the floor is to table it, and we have a second. Any further discussion? On vote.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Dugan.
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, that's the side there.
So move to adjourn.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Dugan.
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye.
Hmm.
We are adjourned.
Is there a time?
Was there a time associated with the workshop or? is-
No, immediately following. It's how you set it up.
All right, at this time, I'll open up,
We have to call to order.
Yes. Yeah.
all right, I'll call this workshop to order.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Here.
Commissioner Russo.
Here.
Commissioner Dugan.
Here.
Judge Garza.
Here. You got it.
Judge, I'd like to apologize to the court for being late. I just flat forgot about it.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
And happy belated birthday. I saw you yesterday. Completely, completely missed it. Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's allows me to at least have an additional excuse.
All right, so this workshop is general discussion of Ramsey County Economic Development and Workforce Development with Commissioners Report. And we have Ms. Karen from Grant Works, is it?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you are the grant manager for this EDA grant.
Yes.
And we also got Jeff Hutt here who would like to speak on citizens here. You may so now.
Last time I showed up and last time we had a conversation was about expanding, getting $30,000 from each entity and borrowing money, and I was against this. Everything that I said in that last series of meetings has turned out to be true, and the same is today. I'd like to say something though. I've worked with Delmar on some other projects, and I don't necessarily have an issue with Delmar as an entity. I have an issue with this workforce project. And I'm go back, I saw the last meeting y'all had in the presentation. Couple of things. Once again, Delmar does not have any sort of product they're offering. They haven't done any study about what classes to offer. 2 weeks before they had opened the workforce training, the grand opening, they were still taking people around through the workforce training center, asking them what they thought would be a good thing to teach. They're running classes right now at the First Baptist Church. They're small. There's no other classes that are being even scheduled until October, from what I understand. One of the things they talked about doing, and I know we talked about this, is important, and it's the health services thing. But currently ACMSI is working with the high school to be able to do clinicals there. And we've also had a verbal commitment from Krista Spahn to work with the high school. That's where we need to be focusing our workforce training. What you guys are doing is basically, we are using taxpayer dollars to fund a building. We paid for it through the salaries of Fouts and Whitson. We paid through it through the salaries of our county attorney working on this. And we're turning over taxpayer funded to a business, which is Delmar, and it doesn't make sense. They talked about dual credit in the last conversation. There's been no conversation with the high school on these things. If you notice, the high school, nobody from the school board is here supporting this. They do not support this. Currently, actually, even dual credit, the high school is using Texas Women's University for dual credit, and they're looking at moving away from using Delmar and using UHV or Corpus Christi A&M. I would like to talk about the presentation. Commissioner Rousseau, I did go back and I re-listened to the conversation about our market area. It is everything west of I-37. This means that they're expecting
I think it's east
of I-37. They're expecting Portland and Gregory and Ingleside to all go to a Rockport campus and not go to a Corpus campus. That doesn't make sense. They're expecting people from Beeville and Centon to come to a Rockport campus when it's actually closer for those people to drive to Corpus. The marketing district that they have goes all the way up to Refugio in Port Lavaca. It goes right up to the outskirts of Victoria. You have University of Houston, Victoria, you have Victoria College, you have great schools. The marketing numbers don't make sense when you dive into it. So there is no benefit for us going into partnership with Del Mar in this project on this workforce center. All we are doing is giving them a foothold in our county for a taxing district. Now, they say you have to have an election for a taxing district. While back, some folks were running for the Board of Regents of Del Mar, and they went and they talked to the president. The president told them their strategic plan is to increase their taxing districts. Why would we give Del Mar a building in Aransas County that has no value right now? It's all been words and up, when they can turn around and use this as a foothold. Why don't we look at it, if we're going to give somebody a building which is just completely un-American and against why don't we put out an RFP? Why don't we put it out to some private companies in the area? Craft Learnings, Craft Center, South Texas Vocational Tech Institution, Southern Careers Institute, Southern Careers Institute of Corpus. In Port Lavaca, you have Certified Training and Safety. Why not, if we don't want to look at those schools, why don't we look at Corpus Christi A&M, UTMSI, Coastal Bend College, UHV. All of these provide workforce training and education, but they're not looking to put us in their taxing district. If you're going to give it to Del Mar, I'd love to see like a thing that says they will not accept any application into any application into Del Mar. So if I may finish, sir. 2 seconds. Yes, sir. Sell the building, put it back on the roll. That was the intention when the school board first sold the building. Get out of the business of education. Y'all shouldn't be, and don't give it to Del Mar. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hood. We'll move on to our general discussion. People would like to start, sorry.
We need a motion.
Okay. I think we're not gonna vote
Okay,
on it.
all right.
Yeah. We're just giving the commissioners more information. And Miss Karen, would you like to speak first on if this is feasible, if the county can give it to Del Mar?
Sure.
Would you give your husband?
He's Blaney, BLANEY.
And where do you live?
I live in Austin, Texas. And that's where Grant Works is headquarters.
Right.
The most recent question, so the grant, and I'm fairly new to managing it, but the grant, as I understand it, was to acquire a building that would then be renovated for use by Del Mar College. This is the Economic Development Association grant given awarded to the county. The acquisition has been achieved, and the only remainder in the grant would be construction or the renovation. And the grant is sort of paused right now at that point. Most of the expenditures to date have been for the acquisition of the building and then some miscellaneous professional services costs to Grant Works into the engineer architect. So we reached out to EDA and I can get his name exactly. Osvaldo Roca, I think. And inquired as to whether the county could transfer the grant wholesale so that the awardee would effectively become Del Mar College. They said yes. And that the only documentation required on their end would be formal letters by the two owners or two responsible parties expressing the desire and willingness to do this transfer.
Do we need, Mr. Hutt brought up a good question about going out for like bid or can we just offer it to Del Mar? Or do we need to put it up and see if anybody else is interested?
The grant?
The grant, yeah, like doing what we're planning on doing with Del Mar, do we need to give other entities an opportunity?
I don't think that would be quite appropriate. I think the thing to do is if there were other entities that were interested, you have to go back to EDA on each one, describe the entity that you were proposing and see if they were okay with that.
Okay.
Because it may, I don't know if their rules could vary depending on the type of organization you're trying to offer it to.
Right.
But they said the college as an entity was fine.
Yes, sir.
With regard to transfer, you have to be deemed an eligible entity per EDA guidelines, and they have a specific set of eligible entities. And so it's conceivable that you could, but you would have to go through the process of making sure that they're an eligible entity under EDA guidelines in which to actually be a recipient to EDA funds.
Okay, I just wasn't sure as a county if we're required to give other people a chance as well. Okay. And you know, commissioners, I called this for y'all. If y'all have questions or if y'all have concerns, you can. Okay.
What would happen if it was put back on a tax roll? What burden would that put on the county if any in Terrell?
So we would have to basically give up the grant. We'd have to sell the buildings. And with the proceeds, pay back what we've used so far.
And that amount is what?
That is. The building purchase was $1,082,000.
But of that, we only received $800 and something thousand.
That's right.
On grant funds. So it's an 80-20 grant.
So we pay back somewhere in the 80,000 range, 800,000, 880.
And then
Between
other
800 and 900.
expenditures as well.
I'm sorry.
There were other expenditures that were reimbursed as well.
And what would happen if it sold for more money than we paid for?
So you pay back the grant funds. When you're dealing with the other grants like for HUD, there's program income rule. I would have to ask EDA about any program income rules.
How long would it take you to get a response? Like in a week or so? Okay, would you do that, please?
My other concern is I know there's a significant amount of donations from the community. And that was, I don't know how that would be addressed.
So
I think they would need to go back. They would need to be refunded to, in the instance that we sold it. My recommendation would be that we refund the people's money.
if they gave cash refund, but if it was in kind, probably not gonna get anything back. Or like,
Now,
If they made those donations to the county, if they made them to
Well, I don't
Del Mar.
think anybody made, the only ones that did income were the county and the school, as far as I know so far. Maybe the architect.
there's a lot of in-kind services. Both on Del Mar side and on our
City of Rockford too.
City of
They
Rockport,
did the.
a little bit of Aransas County, a little bit of ISD.
Right.
Now,
So is there a spreadsheet that would detail that information? That'd be a good thing for us to see.
from the aspect of Del Mar, the grant was awarded with the, or let me rephrase that. Was the grant awarded with the codicil that it would go to Del Mar? I mean, did that have any weight in us being awarded that grant? Is that a good faith thing if we go back on it and or change to somebody other than Del Mar? And what would be the logical reason that we would be able to get out of if that is an implied contract?
The county has the right to terminate the grant for reasons of their choosing before, as long as it's done before 1 year. Like, so if you pass the 1 year mark before the grant deadline, you would affect your eligibility for future grants.
And are we past that deadline?
No.
How close?
Is the deadline August 24th?
Yeah, because I think it ends in August 2025. So August 2024, you have a little while.
So if we decided that we wanted to stay with the the general purpose, but decide we didn't want to do it with Del Mar, we really don't have enough time to change. I mean, we'd have to start completely over again, wouldn't it?
Have you gotten any notification for Del Mar in writing that you were asking for recently about their intent to take it over?
Nothing in writing.
Nothing in writing.
But
Okay.
we,
Right, we're waiting for, the county would have to go to our Board of Regents and request that for the, on that, and then from there,
Oh,
we would then be able to put something in writing.
And would you please tell the court who you are?
Yes, Dr. Natalie Villarreal, Executive Director of Strategic and Operational Initiatives at Del Mar, Colorado.
Thank you.
yes, sir.
First, I apologize. I didn't know you were gonna be so efficient with your financial reports this morning. So apparently the beginning of this, apologize. Jeff Shoson, President of the Aransas County Partnership. If I could, I would just add a couple of thoughts. I'm on my 1-year anniversary with the partnership. And when I came into Aransas County, this project was a debacle. It has been stuck in a morass for a couple of years. And the issue has been trying to figure out, one, how much it would cost to renovate the building so it could be completed and opened. And two, where would those funds come from? And given the financial condition of the county, and frankly, given some conversations that I had with the county judge at the beginning of this year and really coming into 24, it was made clear to me at least that one of the biggest concerns, aside from the feasibility of executing and completing the project successfully, was the concern of this building being a contingent liability long-term on the back of the county. So not just opening it, but then the county's obligations to maintain it and provide insurance and do all of the things as the fiduciary agent for this project. So a few months ago, we started to look at this through the partnership and basically identified 3 alternatives at this juncture. One was to continue on the path forward and try and figure out a way to raise some additional funds, get the county comfortable that the funds were there to go out for bids to secure what the actual bids would be for the completion of the renovations. 2 would be for the county to turn this project back to EDA, basically kill the project, go back to EDA with a request to basically close this for convenience, which would save the county in terms of its relationship with EDA in the long term, but would allow this project to effectively be ended. At that juncture, the county would have to figure out a way to repay EDA for the funds that had been expended on behalf of this project and get those funds back to EDA, which would entail the sale of the building and the processes that you would go through there. The third was, what if we looked at an alternative proposal? And our driving motivation was, how could we effectuate a assignment of the rights and obligations of the county to get the county out from being the fiduciary agent of this project and the recipient of the grants, and figure out a way to come up with an alternative that could still realize the successful completion of a workforce development center, but could remove you from being the financing agent with the rights and obligations attached to the grant for the long-term operations of this facility. And that is where the concept of, what if we looked at the assignment of this project in total from the county to Del Mar College, being that Del Mar was already in the grant as the operator of the facility as it was envisioned long-term. Could Del Mar qualify for EDA requirements? And would Del Mar be willing to assume the financial obligations and the execution of this workforce development center into the future? And with that, Osvaldo with EDA, the EDA regional office, has basically said, based on what I've heard, that there are really 2 things that need to happen if the county were interested in looking at this assignment to get it moving forward. 1, EDA would require financial confidence that Del Mar is not only committed to the project, but willing to take on and manage the financial obligations of the project long term. And 2, there would need to be a letter by both the county and Del Mar to be submitted back to EDA saying, this is what we'd like to happen and why. And so there are a number of different iterations and conversations that we've had as it relates to this project. And EDA, I've worked with EDA for over 30 years. I have, I think, a somewhat successful track record with them, both as a community and as somebody who actually managed the Gulf Coast Economic Development District through the Houston-Galveston Area Council, where I managed one of their programs directly in the Houston-Galveston region. Having worked with them and having talked with some of the folks and talking with the teams of entities, I think there is a viable option, should you choose, that Del Mar could take a look at being assigned the rights and obligations of this grant from you, move the Workforce Development Center. At that point, all of the obligations are on the back of the college. And my hope would be is, and I know from the partnership, that we'd still stand ready and able to support the successful completion of this project. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but in terms of the overview and at least my limited exposure in this project, and it's got a lot of history to it, but it's not really very unique given experiences after Hurricane Harvey, funding that was put out there, funding that became realized as opposed to what a lot of folks were led to believe at the beginning. And this is where we are today. So for what it's worth, and I'm happy to answer any questions or that you may have.
Jeff, that's a lot of stuff. Excuse me, that's a lot of stuff to do between now and August the 14th. How, if we started, if the court decided that they wanted to look at another way to do this rather than, and take the burden off of the county for expenses that are not yet foreseen, okay? Do you think that you would have, we would have time to actually even change it before the deadline? Because there, you know, we just came from conference and they were talking about how deadlines are going to be, you know, pretty much set in stone now because of what they're doing with taxes and different things. Do you think we even have an opportunity? The window is large enough that we could even begin to get the grant done, because it took us a while just to get the grant.
Took you a while to get a grant. It is a 5-year grant window. You're in year 3. We started talking about this alternative proposal back in March. And here we are at the doorsteps of July. I can tell you in conversations with the judge and with the other parties, I have been to other entities that trying to think about the eligibility criteria. Would they be in a position to potentially take this over? And I haven't gone to all of them. Anything is possible, but at least the ones that are local that would make some sense in terms of the workforce solutions, in terms of the COG, those are not viable options. And so could it be done? Probably. I don't know who we would go to based on the eligibility criteria of EDA. And I think that's something that you could explore, but it would make me nervous that we're on a 60-day clock. And I think, you know, there's 2 ways that you have to think about this grant in EDA. One is that you close it for convenience. The other is that EDA just says, they're never going to make this happen. We're going to close it for them. And that's the worst case scenario.
And you have until 2024.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's not long.
You can see that there's, you know, financial value to the county and putting it back in the market. But also, to your, to Jeff point about, you know, the other main campus being in Corpus, I really think it's important to do what we can to further education in the area. And when you think about the expense of what it would, most of Del Mar students commute, and if you can save their commute time, cut it in half, whether it's, you know, Ostwell or Refugio, and not having to go across the bridge to Corpus or in town, if you just save a, you know, third of their travel expenses, that adds up a lot because they are commuting. And so I think it brings value to the community from that standpoint. The other token is when the students come here, they are going to be, you know, purchasing things here, probably, you know, going to our stores and different things that'll be convenient because they're from small towns. We've got our Walmart, we've got our HEB here and things. So, I mean, there's pluses. And like I said, they will be going to the restaurants and things. And then even with Del Mar, I think as far as it goes, you know, there's gonna be all kinds of residual money spent in the community also. So you know, I just really kind of think we have to weigh that out, whether the market value of selling it and plus the timeline, plus really what we're doing for the community, because we need to do something to draw kids here, keep kids here, and you know, give them some opportunities.
One other aspect, just in Judge Monday, you mentioned that you might have thought that the building had sold.
The second building.
Correct.
Right.
And the recent history of that second building is it was put up for certified auction a month ago. And had a minimum base bid of $250,000. There was not one qualified bidder that applied for that bid. I spoke with the realtor yesterday. The building's not sold. They don't have anyone in the queue. And in fact, because it's a special purpose building as an elementary school, our thought is if the county was considerate of trying to secure moving this forward and removing your financial obligations, then we're going to have to be creative with that second building too. And so, you know, would it be better to put it back on the tax roll, get it on the tax roll, sell it in the private market? I've had conversations over the year where some people thought that should have happened day one. But in the situation that we're in right now, I'll just say that it's a unique property. And so I don't know if I would venture too far to say that there's somebody sitting out there that's going to be coming to the table with $800,000. If they could, and if somebody knows them, bring them forward. But with what we have to work with, I just offer that as background.
My concern is that the performance we've seen so far, because I believe Del Mar had to have classes offered by August of 2022 to start matching the grants. So they are either leasing or having space donated to them over at First Baptist. I happen to go to church there. They have a metal building back there. They have their construction trailer there. The first class, I think, can maybe 5 or 6 people. What I was told, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I was told is that it had previously been a class that was scheduled to be in Corpus Christi, and they relocated it to Rockport so that they could meet the obligations of their portion of the grant. That class ended, and I drive up and down North Live Oak all the time. That's why I see what's going on there. And I was excited to see that. It's like, okay, there's an interest here. I think they had a second class and there was one person in that class. I don't consider that a large demand, and that is my concern. I don't believe this is a build it and they will come situation. I think we have seen an opportunity for them to start to take classes over at that portable building. Yes, a portable building is not the same as having a permanent building, but there's free parking. It is accessible, and whatever, if the costs are, they're probably the same at the portable building as they would be at the building on 35. I'm not sure there is the demand for this center. And I don't want us to have a part in something that's going to turn into a fiasco. Whether we continue with it or whether we deed it over to Del Mar, if it's sitting there as a white elephant, we have done this community no service because it was already sitting there with nothing going on before the county bought it. And I also agree, putting it back on the tax rolls. More work has been done on the north side than the south side. It might be more attractive. I think it definitely would be more attractive if it were put on the market. Yes, sure.
I personally think that, you know, we've been on this so long. I don't think we should go out and look for other people. I think we should do one of these or the other and do it quickly. Be done with it.
Yes,
I want to make
Judge.
just a couple of points. Oh, yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to add, you know, for Del Mar College, we serve 4.5 counties, regardless of tax base. We're legally bound and we've been here for a very long time. And so I don't know specifically which class you're talking about, but I do know that we have been in the high schools and we've been in the area, you know, serving the population. What this does is give us an opportunity to expand that. So what we're hearing right? So we crunched our numbers. There's 40,000 people within 30 minutes drive time between the ages of 18 and 65, right? So that includes our dual credit students. You know, you have people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who are retiring and wanting to re-up still. So we've included everybody. So we have looked at the numbers for you. And so we do have that opportunity to expand here. And we're hearing from our employers all over the place is that they need skilled workforce in this area particularly. So if the court does decide to move forward, just to give you that faith, we are ready to continue serving this area and but at a bigger scale. So
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I thought all along that, originally that we would be pointed at training not high school kids, but adults. And I think the conversation seemed like it turned, like most people thought it was strictly for high school kids.
No, I didn't.
I think the labor force of people around, one of the things for the county and the other government entities is the law has changed in what it takes to get a CDL driver's license. The county, the school, the cities, everybody, you're going to have people that are going to Corpus, and the class is really expensive. People that live here that work for us and other government entities and probably private companies, what it takes to get that one thing is a substantial and ongoing thing. Is because every time you have new people come in, that's one of the requirements, and there are probably some other things, but it seems strange to me that the conversation over the time of this has zoned in mostly on high school kids rather than the rest of the labor force.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking high school kids. I was thinking adults. So anybody, postgraduate of high school into their 30s or 40s looking to make a career change.
Mr. Duke, or Commissioner Duke.
The last thing I think we need to consider too, we want to bring in economic development, we want to bring in businesses. If you brought in a company wants to be established here and say they're going to have 25, 50, 75 employees. If you don't have a trained workforce here, if most of the employees are driving from Sinton or Portland or one of the outlying areas, they're not going to locate here. They're going to locate closer to their employees because again, the employees don't want that commute. If we can have a workforce center here, a lot of times, Del Mar, like I said, with my former company, they cater to what your needs are. One of those things are CDLs. And now they're doing lineman training with the association with Rocktown. Well, you can have a base here that works with business that want to move here, move to our community and tailor that to them. That'll have our workforce in existing housing and actually help our per capita income from existing people, not just, bringing people from outside the area when we don't have a very good housing here.
Mr. Hutt, you have something?
Yes, sir. If you look at the numbers that they did, the 40,000, it's based upon Portland, Sinton, these areas being included in it. I mean, are you really going to drive from Portland to Rockport when you can drive across the bridge in 5 minutes and go to the Windward Council? I mean, that's really not these are not really good numbers. I don't understand why the county thinks it's placed to identify a need in education and build a building and give it to a school. You're sucking the oxygen out of the room. How do you know we're not going to get the high school is not going to start a CDL program for people afterwards? How do you know a school is not going to come in and give CDL? Education is like anything. And I've worked in education and I've set up schools and my job was to go and do these sort of things. I would have never done this, first of all. But the idea is don't take the oxygen out of the room. Don't put Del Mar in here, which is it doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't make sense in the reality of the classes they want to offer. Leave this spot to the free market economy, sell the property, just get out of the business. Y'all shouldn't have been in it before. And that's all I'm saying. Just this has been a boondoggle from the beginning.
I taught in Aransas Pass for about 7 years, and I did business applications and different things like that. But Aransas Pass has had a training program with Dow, they would take kids that were sophomores and take them and pay them a very minimal amount of money to just come over and just learn the mathematics and things. They bust them over and everything. But that was a 3-year program. But by the time they got through with their senior year, they hired, I know two particular years that I was involved in that. They had 2 of the students come out with an offer of making more money than the high school superintendent. I mean, the high school principal, making more money to start as a high school principal. Now, that was a career training thing, but that put the emphasis only on the high school people. It wasn't looking for outside thing, whatever. But at that time, we just had Dow and we had Reynolds and we had stuff. We got a lot more than that. My daughter just went to work for Kiewit. My daughter is a trained electrician. And they are taking her through a very intensive program. That's a 3-year program. But she got hired in 2 steps up with a possibility of going to 3rd step within a year before what she's eligible. Now, it doesn't pay a lot of money. It pays $20 an hour. Okay, $20 an hour for someone with children is not much money, but it's a whole lot better than $14 or $15 of what's available here. Now, she works strange hours, but she gets paid to work strange hours, everything. But if she had started that whenever she got out of high school, she would be at 3rd, 4th, or 5th tier above where she is now. Now, if we can give kids an opportunity, or people coming from, God forbid, California, but people coming down here, that this is a very unique area. But just like anything else that is a gamble with the community, it is a gamble. And this is a very valuable piece of property. Now, where's the greater value? Is the greater value in something in the short term and getting our money back and put in other things that Mr. Hutt over here researches stuff and everything, and I go along with a lot of what he said, and I don't disagree with this, except that we're looking in an area that we really don't have a lot of experience in. And to my knowledge, and I've only been here 27 years, so what do I know? But to my knowledge, Del Mar has not treated any of their partnerships unfairly. Now, nobody's brought up their history or anything like that. And if this was some other area, we might look at it differently. But I don't know why. The real question here, in my opinion, is this a large investment for a long time? If it's a large investment for a long time, then we need to look at it differently. But if it's something that if we can take 100 people a year and get them where they can go to a local thing and learn we always talk about learning how to weld, but learn how, I can tell you, if you go and set up a class on how to read prints and how to do electronics, micro technology, everything, you'll start at $100 an hour. Now, folks, that's worth the investment. But now, if we're going to go over here, we're just going to look at sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and we're going to wait for the school district to send it to us, everything. We're not going to that's not ever going to pay for itself. But if we market it right, if we get somebody that knows how to run the organization, if we get another like Jeff Sostrom here, this thing's going to just blossom. We got a lot of room. We can do a lot of things, and Del Mar's got a lot of expertise, and they're local. We had the guy that was over all of career technology lived right on 1069. And it just makes sense to look at this not in a microcosm, but in a macrocosm. To look at who can we bring in. Whenever I came on the court, about 15 years ago, I guess it was. There was 3,500 people in the whole area. And now on any given day, you can have 50,000 people here. And half of those people want to move here. Okay, and those people that want to move here have the money to, I don't know how to turn this sucker off. I'm just. Let me just.
That's fine.
I have got a new phone. I haven't figured out how to off yet. But I have seen it work. I have actually seen it work, and it works very well. And now we have 3 or 4 times the number of plants that we have. We have, we have the need all the time. Kiewit has on all their trucks, we have jobs. And they'll take anybody that can follow the rules and learn. Okay, but if you go in there with the previous knowledge, everything, it's well worth it. So I think I have trepidation about all this stuff, but I think if this is really truly for the future and not just for next year or the following year or the short term, then if it's for short term, we don't need to be in it. But if we commit ourselves to going long term, and Del Mar has committed ourselves to going long term, but I do agree with Mr. Hutt on thing that he's said from the very beginning. If we want to go in the taxing district, then we'll bring that to the table. We don't need Del Mar or somebody else bringing it to the table. But there's a lot of folks around that would like to see their children be able to live in the area and not have to go to Houston or Dallas so I think for the investment, I think it's worth it.
Yes, sir. Just last comment, if I may. First, philosophically, if selling the building in the premise of putting it back on the tax roll is your priority, wish you all the best in any way that we can help you in that, we'd be happy. With regard to the Workforce Development Center, I think you just nailed it. We got to be thinking 4 or 5 years down the road, not
We need to think 20
this year,
years down
next
the road.
year. We need to be thinking about the future of this region. Aransas County is one of the only counties in this entire coastal bend that's got a projected double-digit growth population for the next 5 years.
Mhm.
There are employers that I'm talking to that are paying attention to that.
Mhm.
We have 2 local companies that I've talked to that if we had the Workforce Development Center open last year, they would have been utilizing because of their expansion and diversification. Fortunately, we're able to tie them into Del Mar and let them talk to them about what their future employment needs are. We have a current prospect that a couple of you have met, and Commissioner Dupnick knows from his history, one of the first questions that companies ask is, where's my workforce coming from?
That's right.
We have a workforce challenge. Everybody in Texas does, but we see it on a daily basis. As we look at the future, this is a tool. In my opinion, this Workforce Development Center is another tool to go into our toolbox. And as we look at the opportunities of growing within this county, this is another asset that could be a huge benefit into the future for Aransas County. So there are a number of demographics and statistics and all sorts of things I think that we can apply, but just philosophically, if you think the best route forward is just to cancel this idea and sell the building, then if we can help you, we'd be happy to try and help.
I have a question for Dr. Villarreal. So my concern is what is apparently a lack of participants or students in the programs. Can you address that?
Again,
All right.
and I don't know specifically which classes.
I
We had
believe there are construction classes that
construction classes. Okay, so that actually came through a grant through Rebuild Texas a few years ago. If y'all remember that, the Dell Foundation put a significant amount of money into this area after Hurricane Harvey. So that's where those construction classes came out of. If that is true, and that's what you're telling me, then we have work to do. Then we have to address that, and we have heard that. And so we will address that. The fact of the matter is, just like Jeff said, I mean, we're going to support anything the county decides to do. This isn't about taxing for us. That is y'all's decision at any given time of what you would want to do with that. For us, this is our service area. So regardless of what you decide to do with the building, we're still going to be here. We're still going to continue to work with the ISDs and to provide services in any way that we can. Because I mean, we don't want to, I'm sorry, what was it, Mr. Boondoggle? We don't want to add, I'm not from here, so I don't know what that means. I'm from Orange Grove. So I don't want to add to I don't want to add to the boondoggledness of this, but again, we're here, and like Jeff said, we're going to support you in whatever decision you make. But we are ready to stay and to continue building here and addressing those issues.
But you said Rebuild has given the grant for that construction program. So there's an end in sight for that grant.
That grant did already end, and so Del Mar College continued it because there was a need. If there's not a need, then we need to address that and put our efforts into something else that the area needs.
And I would just add that you have to look at this last legislative session, in which Del Mar played a significant role in the revamping of community college funding. They're changing the process in the system,
It's not bad.
and Del Mar is at the head of the table of that as a community college representing within the state. And then with the dual credit program and the relationship that they not only have with Aransas County ISD, but that they've enhanced over the last couple of years. Their position, I'll be honest with you, I came to Aransas County, I didn't know much about Del Mar. And I was probably as skeptical as most with regard to what's the position of the community college and what's their staying power. And I've been, as I've gotten better educated, they're a good partner. And again, this is growing for the future. So when we talk about the career occupations, I have some differences of opinion because I think somebody like Mike Gear needs to be intricately involved with this as it relates to aviation. And as we look at the success of the maritime programs, as we look at the healthcare services, the construction trades, obviously, and a number of from instrumentation, those types of things. But I've grown in my confidence, at least as it relates to Del Mar College and what their capacity is and what their track record has been. And I would look for favorable trends going forward for us.
I am very familiar with Del Mar. I used to be the VP for Finance and Administration of the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Corpus Christi. And we set up an internship program with the accounting and with the MIS department there. And that was back in the early 90s. I later went to the Corpus Christi Medical Center, and we did a student scholarship program to bring in student nurses from Del Mar as well as Texas A&M. So I'm very familiar. I used to go to continuing education classes there. My husband has a couple of degrees from there. We need to switch careers. I have a very good opinion of what I've seen of the product that comes out of Del Mar. My concern is I'm saying that I have not seen folks taking construction courses. You're saying that you were perhaps paying for that last series of courses, or there was apparently one student, but you are not aware, and I'm not castigating you, I'm just saying from what you've commented, you aren't aware that maybe that program is not working. How are you going to, you being Del Mar, define what courses we need here and get people enrolled in them to take those classes to improve and do all of these glorious things that the Workforce Development Center possibly could do?
Sure. And those conversations are ongoing all the time, which is why we do already have relationships here in the area. And after Harvey, construction was highly sought after. There were wait lists. This area, we kept hearing that there was a demand. We were getting numbers from industry of how many construction workers there were at the time. Again, if that has changed, then that is something that we have to address. But in terms of, so we talked about systems, healthcare, we know that the population is going to need an extreme amount of nurses, of doctors, and we have all of those numbers. And so we work with advisory groups and industry to constantly see what is needed in the area.
But don't you need to continue to offer classes here under the requirements of the grant that you received? Or has that portion?
That portion is still, but as this is our service area, like I said, Del Mar is not going anywhere. We will continue to be here and serve students regardless of what happens.
So the fact that there haven't been any classes or students at that portable building over there behind the First Baptist Church.
That's one class. I don't know.
Okay.
We'd have
Thank
to
you.
address that. But yeah, that's just one class.
John, do you happen to have any numbers?
I'm John Stryboss, STRYBOS.
Thank you, I was gonna ask.
I'm the Vice President, Chief Fiscal Facilities Officer for Del Mar College. So what Del Mar is committed to being a partner with the community because you're in our service area. So we're obligated by law to provide certain services as part of the grant, and we've been involved in the grant from day one as a partner, and it's a match based on our time. So for example, I do a timesheet. Now it does a timesheet. So it's part of our time, not just the classes that we teach, it's part of our match to the grant. So that's our in-kind match on the grant. We're committed to teaching classes, but you're right, classes have to match. We need input from you, we need input from Jeff. If you teach a class and no one shows up, that doesn't help anyone. So we have to have meetings just like this with you, with your employers, with future employers, come to the community and find out what kind of training do they need. And we need to match that. That's how these work. And we truly need a space and a place. While we can always do that out of a temporary facility, which we're doing now, you see how limited that success is, probably based on what we can teach and how we can teach it. Having a specialized facility helps us with that. But your decisions about what to do with it will be your decisions on that. But it always helps to have space and a place, put your name out front, and it has this location, has high visibility. And then we can sit down and have these discussions with you, with employers. What kind of training do they need? What kind of employees do they need? And we can customize our training to match that. And literally we could have one employer who needs, well, I have 50 employees. I need them trained in, fill in the blank, and we can have the classes for them. We have instructors who can do that, and can't, we can find them. So it's more about training the community for the jobs that are in the community. And we need your input on that. We welcome that input. We can have these kinds of meetings because having a doesn't help any of us. I think we have to partner with them together on that.
I do have a comment. So Mr. Judge, you said when you started this building, it was a debacle from the start. And all for. Oh, you're done? Oh, okay. Thanks, Judge. From the start, and I would offer it's because we're a county government. We don't build workforce training centers and we don't do programming. That's probably why it's been a debacle. And then I think Mr. Hutt offered, if we go through with this, you know, and he's not the only one, there's been a lot of people who have expressed to me that we don't want to be a taxing district. And I know Del Mar's position is we don't initiate it, but the community does. I mean, we could have an influencer say, hey, you know, they could give a campaign to try to do it. 20 years ago, the commissioner's court here signed off not to. I think, was there a vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the governor vetoed it.
Right. the governor-
Mike just had that in his paper.
Yeah, that's why
Senate Bill 350.
it was good. It was good timing, but yeah, we don't want to be the one that 20 years from now, hey, this commissioner court opened the door to be a taxing district. So if there's any way you could do like a document that binds us to never be a taxing district, that'd be cool. I don't know if that'd be good. I mean, you could create anything. And then the portable buildings out there that's offering classes, and I'm gonna add to what Commissioner Rousseau is saying. It was all over Facebook, free classes. I think Commissioner Rousseau mentioned about the price. Well, the construction classes, the plumbing classes, electrical classes, they were free. And I don't think y'all had any classes.
I actually knew some people that went through the carpenter classes after
That was
Harvey, and it was a number of.
That was the first one, and I'm talking about the ones from the past year. 0. And I go by the building all the time. I go by the portables because I'm looking, I want to go inside and I want to introduce myself. I don't ever see, there was that one class that was in there. You know, they got a good news story, they got a good photo op, and after that one class left, I haven't seen that building being used at all. Maybe I'm missing it. I don't know, but I do go by there, and that does concern me is like, you got something that's free. People aren't taking advantage of it. Maybe they don't see the value in free. But yeah, that it does kind of concern me.
I see Del Mar as from a business standpoint, as a needs-based institution, training, technical training. I can see that working with the economic development because we need to bring people in here. And so those two tie together. The other thing is, there are a lot of people in this community that are in their 30s and 40s that are doing jobs that they'd rather not be doing, but they want to stay in the community. Either they don't have the training, they don't have the capability of driving 30, 45 miles to another job. But those all play hand in hand. You have a work base here, already a mature work base that is not trained, tying that to economic development, who they can bring in, training with Delmore. I think it's a big plus for the community. If they help our community tax base grow in the community in a different way, not just a one-time sale of a retail store or whatever that, Little Bay might become. I think we need to look long-term, and I think same thing with your saying, like long-term, if this is done right, tying Delmore economic development together, it would be a big plus for our community with the available workforce we have.
Well, it's, we're in a changing climate right now. Used to, you'd come here to Rockport and you know all your neighbors and everything, but those days are over. And, I would like for it to stay a small, quiet community, but it ain't going to. It's just one of the few pristine areas that are around, and this community takes that very serious. We don't want, I guess basically what I said after we had the Harvey is, we can't just be a tourist community anymore. We've got plants coming around us. The Port of Corpus Christi wants to annex into us, and they're not going to do that just to see corn grow. They're going to do that because they want to bring businesses and stuff in. And I think with the new direction of the port manager since Mr. Stonebridge is gone, I think that's going to look to doing things that are community friendly, but focus on the port and infrastructure. In this time that we've had in the last 3 or 4 years, the biggest problem as I have as an electrician is that is getting material. And one of the reasons they're having a problem getting material is because there's no transport for them. I mean, we through COVID and all the other stuff that we went through, we have the largest building that China has built in the United States, sitting over at right as you go into Gregory, thank you. And it's just empty. And one of the reasons
that's not really true. I know somebody that works there, and it's completely different than what you think driving by.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, what's it like?
I haven't been in it.
Okay.
And I said, I know somebody that, I thought the same thing until I met somebody that worked there and said there's much more going on
that's
than
awesome.
what you realize.
That's awesome. But the bottom line is, that, if we don't look to the future and if we don't try to help at the base level at the future, then it's just not going to have any input in it at all. I mean, really are. We have to have people that keep their eye on the budget, and we have to have people that make decisions not based on emotion or based on just how it helps me out. But we got a lot of people coming in with a lot of different backgrounds and need fine tuning and everything. And whenever we're talking about like the kids that I talked about in Aransas Pass, there were a lot of them that did that, but they are in the business now, and they're better now than they were whenever they got out of school. And whenever I was city manager of Marble Falls, we had a very similar thing there. And we had a young man that hated school. He hated school. What he liked is working on cars. He is now one of the most successful body shops in Central Texas now over there. And he stayed in, he went to a local technical school to learn how to do that. And the only reason he did that is because his dad told him if he didn't, he's gonna take his car away from him. But now he's very successful. I haven't seen or talked to him in 10 or 15 years, but then he was a millionaire. And it was just through hard work and training. I mean, he stayed on top of everything. And if we can in any way get a tenth of our population or a percentage of our population that are bettering themselves, then their kids will look at bettering themselves, and the people around them will look at bettering themselves. and everything, and 1 becomes 2, and 2 becomes 4, and 4 becomes a full bucket. So I think we gotta either stay the way we were, or we've got to look to the future.
Judge, sorry, just a couple questions, comments. Del Mar will get you the historical data of what we've taught here and when and where and how many classes, how many enrollments, which classes. I don't have that data now, it doesn't have that data, but we can get that data, we can provide that data to you. First, you'll have a very clear record of what has been taught and what the enrollments were on that. About the taxing district, I would recommend you talk to Robstown. A year ago, Robstown went through this process. They had an election and that election didn't pass. And it's up to the voters. Well, the way that the election process to become taxing is prescribed by law. And with respect to the law, you're in the room. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving you the law. But basically, they have to want to become and vote to become part of the taxing district. And they call for a general election. And it can be any kind of election day. That's again, that's election law. And so they had to have an election that hadn't passed by the voters. And they had to go through and get a petition that had to be approved based on the number of voters so to qualify for the election. But Robstown went through that process a year ago and that did not pass. And so that's your best, if you want to.
Right, and just for the community's sake, y'all don't need a building here to initiate an election. We could have one today.
Right.
Someone initiate it today. Okay.
And it's not up to, Del Mar does not initiate that election. And I'm not gonna get, someone can say, no, that's all wrong, and I'm telling you, I'm not the lawyer, and I'm telling the law, it's general, what I have is a general understanding. You talk to Robstown, that the community or part of the community wants to be annexed by Del Mar. They have their own annexation election. And Del Mar cannot take a position in favor or against that, just provide information. And so the law is very prescriptive about this whole process. And it's codified, and I would recommend your legal counsel to walk you through that process if you have a question.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
You just received, you being Del Mar, was it like 686 million or something in that neighborhood from the state legislature?
That was all 50 community college
Okay,
systems.
and how much is Del Mar's portion of that?
They're still in the rulemaking, so we're gonna find out in the next few weeks.
Do you have an anticipated idea
No,
of what you're gonna get out of it?
no.
The numbers keep changing and that's a 2-year stuff. It's part of the biennium, so it's part of a 2-year. But Del Mar has always received a certain allocation from the state.
But this is boosting up the
Yeah.
allocation.
It may, we don't know.
It's not automatic.
No.
So it depends on if our students are successful. They have to complete in order for us to get a certain amount of money. So it's allotted to us if we are able to complete. our
Under that
students.
new criterion.
Yes.
We're preparing our budgets now. We're on a state of Texas fiscal year because we're tied in state budgets and we're basing everything on getting the exact same amount now as we did last year. So we're not counting on any kind of increase because we don't know if we'll get one and how much, and if we get more, what it takes to get that.
So we will have that information hopefully in the next few months.
I just can't leave without saying too, I'm still incredibly bullish about the opportunities in front of you as Aransas County. And the interest is there. We've got some fundamental issues that include workforce, includes attainable housing, includes enhanced medical services. And there are conversations happening every day of the week about this, and we're happy to be a part of those. We have already turned down a couple of heavy industry prospects that have been brought to us. And the first one, it was a little interesting for me, and I came to the judge to say, Judge, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this is what we're looking for in Aransas County. And it doesn't make us real popular with some of the folks that want pro growth at any cost. But if we're going to maintain, preserve, and protect the superior quality of life of Aransas County, not just today, but into the future, we've got the building blocks to make that happen. And so I don't want to leave today without at least saying that the partnership is excited about what the future for this county is, and the trajectory is looking very positive. So thank you for your continued leadership and what you all do.
Are you saying Del won't be part of that building block?
I would say personally, as it relates to the Workforce Development Center and a partnership with Del Mar College, that would be a tremendous asset for Aransas County into the future. Thank you.
I would see the medical services being critical. I know a lot of our employees, I know a lot of my neighbors cannot get general practice care in this community because the doctors that are here are not accepting any new patients. Doesn't matter if they have lawyer insurance, if they have TRICARE, if they have Medicare, they just aren't taking new patients. And I see that portion of Little Bay being a potential medical clinic. I know that the Amistad had looked there, but they wanted the county to provide that. That wasn't in keeping with the grant.
And I can tell you, if we were successful in Del Mar with the Workforce Development Center, and based on conversations I've had as late as this week with some of our medical partners, that there is a concerted effort to focus not only on those needs, but to bring in enhanced services to this county. And it is complementary to this whole thing that we're talking about, and it could fit very nicely. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm encouraged by the fact that folks are already talking about it, thinking about it within their institutions or organizations. And they're looking at the position that Aransas County has within the coastal bend and why it makes sense to be thinking about this area for the future geographically.
That's good to hear. I do know there are physicians who have been offering services here on an intermittent basis. They come once a week, every other week or something like that, who have just lost access to the building that they were in. And they have been looking for suitable quarters and have been unsuccessful.
There's some of those I'd love to talk to, so if you can connect me with them, I would love to talk.
I'll see if I can get the permission.
Good.
Well, I anticipate putting this on the next agenda on how you want to move forward, how the commissioners court wants to move forward. So I encourage y'all to do your homework, ask questions, y'all make contacts, and Tracy, you got that? The next commissioners court will take a vote on how we want to proceed with this. Yes, oh, yes, Commissioner Phelps.
I don't know if y'all have the material that Lenore Keys presented to us Monday.
Yes, we'll
Okay.
hear.
All right, so under the population statistics for the Rockport site, excluding part of Windward campus catchment area, where she shows total population estimates, and I'm just looking at 0 to 30 minutes. I sort of agree with Mr. Hutt in that I'm not sure people from Referio are going to come here instead of just hopping on 77 going into Corpus Christi. But under the 0 to 30 minutes, where it shows the 2020 to 2030 CAGR, someone has 0.87%. Is that really 0.87%? Because that's less than 1%. Or should it be 87%?
I don't have it in front of me.
Would you just send this to you?
I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Because 0.87%, like I said, is less than 1%. That's not significant.
But if you look at the total number of potential students, so that is Del Mar College being extremely conservative with our numbers. So even with that small amount of population,
So that is
we
what
would
it
be
is.
able to be significant at the center. And I guess that's just being conservative and going as slow as we think. And we still think that's still a significant number for the center.
Okay, thank you.
And just as an aside, with our housing survey that we're working on, we've gone out to San Patricio County and we've tried to create a relationship with the big industry out there. We've only had success with 3, but it's just interesting on this conversation topic that those 3 have effectively a 10% participation rate of people that work at the plants but live in Aransas County. And it's not enough for us to extrapolate it out, but that's something that we want to continue to look at, is how many folks that are living here are actually working in neighboring counties. And I think that's something for us to play with as we go forward, thinking about our relationship within the region.
I'm sorry, back to your question about that. So part of the map that is done at a community college level about where will students come from. So in general, you're not gonna have students coming from San Antonio to come here to go to college, all right? So what all the community colleges in general do is they have what they call a catchment area. And so they define those boundaries, and it's based on drive time, and drive times vary for each community college, each location that they have. And within that, they'll use a certain amount of historical map. So for example, in San Antonio, the catchment area, they use like 7% for the population, more people, all right? But then when they start looking at other areas here, when we talk about 0.87% of that whole area. And so there's historical math, there's statistics behind why these numbers and what the basis of. And while 0.87% is a realistic number, is a very low number, it's a conservative number. Because this is public information, so our Board of Regents are seeing this also. So in the same way you're asking these questions, our Board of Regents are asking the exact same question. That if Del Mar took over, if this did go forward and Del Mar took over, how's it going to be paid for? Because in the same way how you don't want to be in the taxing district, in Oasis County that does pay the taxes, they really don't want their money coming over here, not to be particular about how counties spend their money, the residents. And the regents are very concerned about that issue. So as staff, we're having to make a business case. Can Del Mar operate this? And can it be successful? And part of it is how many students could come. Now, the other piece is about teaching the right classes at the right times and the right days so that personnel can come, so we can partner with the community. So that's kind of some background on that and why 0.87% in a business case, you'd say that would never work, but it's about the total number of students.
Well, I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I just wanted to clarify that that was the
Right,
correct amount.
right, and that is correct.
But thank you for that other information.
Sure.
And I'd rather you were conservative.
Well, we have to, we have to, no, that if we use
That's
numbers.
the way this county runs.
Well, and that's the way we have to do all of this. There's too much at stake for all of us.
Right.
The last thing we want is, I think the white elephant, we don't do that. It needs to be a success for all of us.
All right.
I guess, Judge, if anyone has any other, as the court goes through this, as you hear from your citizen, and they want to know about fill in the blank, they can email Natalie, and we're happy to provide you whatever kind of information, details that you need. And if anyone wants to meet with a volunteer Natalie, with Lenore, myself, to talk about, whatever kinds of
Thank you.
questions. We're committed to you having the kind of information you need to make the best informed decision. And we recognize these are very hard decisions. When we talk about an EDA grant, and Del Mar is a partner to this particular grant, we're part of other entities for these EDA grants, they're critical to the success of the communities because it's a funding source that you otherwise do not have access to. And we're in this grant through our time. That's our share on that. That's part of the commitment on how that grant was awarded because we had to show a match. And Del Mar is part of that match on that grant.
Would you have, Dr. Villarreal, will you leave a business card here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Congratulations.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Dugan.
Aye.
Judge Sparrow.
Hi. We are adjourned. Thank you. That's a very